drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. Since the Yankee come to Trinidad, they got the young girls all going mad. Young girls say they treat 'em nice, make Trinidad like paradise, drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. Oh, you sexy, sexy. Chicky Chick carry to Mona's Isle, native girls all dance and smile, help soldier celebrate his leave, make every day like New Year's Eve, drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. It's a fact, man, it's a fact. In old Trinidad, I also fear the situation is mighty queer, like the Yankee girl, the native swoon, when she heard her bingo croon, drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. Out on Manzanella Beach, GI romance with native peach. All night long make tropic love, next day sit in hot sun and cool off, drinking rum and Coca-Cola. Go down Point Cumana, both mother and daughter, working for the Yankee dollar. It's a fact, man, it's a fact. Rum and Coca-Cola. Rum and Coca-Cola.
Now I'm thirsty. Hello, Internet. My name is John Kulas. I'm a 20-year professor of industrial and organizational psychology, 10-year user of R for statistical applications, and for the last 6 or 7 years, I've also been using R to author all kinds of things, academic papers mainly, more recently slide presentations like what you're seeing on the right here, technical reports, certainly feedback reports. I'm trying to get better at those. Anything really that you can document, or anything that you might have a need to document analyses along with a summary of those analyses. And so every week I just hang out for an hour here, usually with my buddy Diego, and I'm sure he'll be coming along in a little bit. He's kind of a co-host, and we just make ourselves available if anybody pops along and has any questions about how to get started using R as an authoring platform, or if you're already using it and maybe have a question about how to do something. Fonts, for example, fonts are something that's kind of fun to play around with. Um, or we could probably open it up too, because people seem to have more interest in the statistical traditional applications of R. If someone has a question about that, we'd be open to answering those types of questions as well. So what we do every week is we'll recap what happened the previous week, because these are just kind of open, unscripted, non-linear problem-solving sessions and kind of explorations into features of R as an authoring platform. Uh, Probably a good idea to revisit what we did the previous week in a more linear, digestible fashion. And so that's what the recap is intended for. So we'll first take a look at what happened last week. And last week we were playing around with callouts and trying to get a callout that looked like what we want it to look like, instead of the 5 built-in callout styles that Quarto has. And then today, I think this might be one of those multi-week explorations, unless somebody comes by and they have a specific question that we can address. But this concept of interactivity within documents. We've kind of addressed this before, but we've addressed it in the traditional way to address interactivity from the perspective of R, and that's full interactivity in terms of user defined and specified and filtered information through Shiny as a platform. And Shiny is an ecosystem all in and of itself. And so, what I thought we'd do tonight, and again, I'm guessing that tonight is going to bleed into at least next week, but maybe the next few weeks, is we'll explore some options for interactivity that don't require Shiny. Because Shiny almost is, to me, it's kind of a language on top of R. So all these other things that we've been dealing with, even though we've been talking about authoring, we've been dealing with R Markdown and Quarto, still feels like R. Shiny feels a little bit different. So we're gonna stay away from Shiny, but we're gonna talk about some other options to introduce some elements of interactivity into your reports. And then again, this shared problem solving. Initially, when we came up with this idea of just hanging out for an hour a week, this was the focus, and I still think I would like to get there eventually. So we'd like to have this concept of open office hours where someone might want to come by and just kind of bend our ear, and maybe we can help, even just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. That sometimes helps. There's so many good resources online. YouTube's fantastic for figuring out how to do something, but it's also helpful just to have someone to chat with, and that's kind of why we're here every week at Tuesday for an hour, roughly. Okay, so let's get into our transition here and see what happened last week.
Well, our heroes are now in Pottsylvania, a country where everybody's a spy and everything's a secret. And what's more, last time when our boys opened the door to their room, they found it in a dreadful condition. Bullwinkle instantly made a brilliant deduction.
Somebody's been in here. I know, 'cause when we went out, this blotter was facing the other way.
At that moment, in the underground headquarters of the International Spy Ring, Boris Badenov was speaking to his superior officer.
Well, there they are, fearless leader. All of Moose and Squirrel's money and papers.
And what do you think they'll do now, Badenov?
They'll start for home.
And how do we get secret rocket fuel formula from Moose if he goes home?
You mean...
Yes, in the words of our decadent American enemies, you goofed. I'll have to report this to Mr. Big.
Mr. Big?
Not Mr. Big. So last week, oops, I'm on the wrong screen here. Last week, and this looks a little cluttered, I did put a link to the slides in the comments here. So if you are viewing this later, it should, I think that pops up. You might have to, I was looking into this week. You might have to do some kind of repositioning and reconfiguration of your YouTube, but you should be able to see the chat at some point, depending on options that you select. But so anyway, I'm going to try to put a link to the slides in what I see as comments, but I think that comes through as chat on YouTube. And this is a little cluttered, but what we were really focused on is we were trying to get this call out to look customized, and customized in our particular case, we didn't have a specific need other than let's just play around with this and follow a tutorial that's hyperlinked here. The tutorial is fantastic. We didn't come up with this. Someone else came up with this, and we just followed her steps. But we just, because we didn't have a case need for this, we just put the Pink Panther in there and kind of made it Pink Panther themed. All of this information, you should be able to copy it, and whoa, I don't know what happened there, but looks like I might have a nasty virus or something on my computer. Something just flashed. All of this code you should be able to copy straight from the link to the slides. Both of these have a clipboard on them, and you should be able to copy and then just paste straight into, in this particular case, a QMD, so a Quarto document. The code on the left, this is not R script, this is CSS. So in your code chunk specification, you're not going to want the typical R in curly brackets. You need a CSS. And so this CSS on the left is what defines the Pink Panther here on the lower right. It defines the shell of it, the format of it, not the content. The content itself, in terms of fantastic walkthrough available here, and tutorial, as well as this YouTube. I should have taken this off actually, as well as the YouTube icon. This is specified in your Quarto document itself. And so you see these fenced divs. We'll walk through these fenced divs in a second. It's messy. It's really messy. One of the things I wanted to do was to clean this up a little bit. We found one little trick to use bracketed spans instead of fenced divs, but we weren't able to apply that everywhere we wanted to apply it. So you should be able to take this code on the left, copy it, put it in as a CSS chunk. You should be able to take this upper right code and just paste it in the body of your Quarto document, and you should render this same Pink Panther callout. And of course, you can tweak it however you might want to. The one caveat there, the one exception, is this YouTube symbol here. I'm pulling that YouTube symbol from a package called Font Awesome. And so if you don't have Font Awesome installed on your local computer, you'll need to install it just like a normal package. Just go into, if you're in our studio, and I'm guessing most people that watch this are probably still using our studio. Maybe there's some positron adoptees, but let me get our co-host in here.
Vamos a ver, ¿qué es lo que pasa con los alcaldes? ¡Ja! ¡Ja! ¿Qué es lo que pasa con los alcaldes? ¿Qué es lo que sí, qué está pasando con los alcaldes?
Hey, hello. You were talking
Dear.
about positron.
Well, I was just saying that the code that we have to create the callout that we were playing with last week, it's all there and it's all available in the slide deck, so anyone could copy on the upper left here this and paste it into a CSS chunk. You can take this on the right and paste that into the body of your Quarto document, except I was saying for this Font Awesome element, and I was just gonna tell people that if you want to if you don't have Font Awesome, you should be able to install it like normal within our studio, and I just wanted to verify that that was actually true. The exception that wouldn't be true is if we pulled this not from CRAN, the main repository, but if we pulled it from GitHub, which Diego and I sometimes do. So I'm just verifying that it's on CRAN, and it is on CRAN. So if you happen to see this and want to recreate our awesome Pink Panther here, which I love, I don't know, I love his relaxed pose there. It fits so nicely in the header of that. Then you'll need to install Font Awesome. Diego, I still don't have, so I got my internet provider to be sending me a new piece of hardware, but it hasn't arrived yet. So if I start breaking up again, just let me know, will you, please?
Okay.
So it's possible that it'll happen again, but it should be okay. I'm not even gonna, well, I'll knock on wood. Hopefully it'll be okay within the next couple of weeks.
I see
So
that
this
you need to use font awesome double colon, otherwise it confuses it with factor analysis.
It might. That's a good point. Yeah, you can also load Font Awesome in as a library, like most normal people do. I don't know, for whatever reason I have the library specified when I use Font Awesome, or when I use the emo package as well. And I know that one we get from GitHub. This CSS here, the other kind of complexity, I guess, that I have, in addition to the YouTube symbol here that you see in red, is I also have this funky script. And so the funky script is again controlled through CSS. And what I did, it's grayed out here because it's not of utmost importance, but I have the code that is necessary for anyone to have. As long as you have an internet connection, this is fine. But it loads the script that we're using onto your local computer, or has it actually available for use. And then I use it again down here with a color pink on it. And so there's just a little bit of CSS here. that actually specifies that color and then that script. And you see that here on line 9, this bracketed span, square brackets of what I want to affect, curly brackets of the CSS I want to apply. That's what's rendering fantastic as this color and this script. So there was a little complexity in it. Instead of stripping it down, I just left it in and tried to get everything situated as much as possible so anyone out there could just copy and paste this into their local documents, with the one exception being Font Awesome. So make sure you have Font Awesome on your computer. The specification here, and Diego and I kind of came to I think we came to the consensus last week that we might benefit from a web developer to help us combine these 4 separate CSS chunks. But it's kind of probably beyond us in terms of being able to do that. So what we're doing here is we're creating 4 different elements of this Pink Panther object. And the 4 different elements are the entire box. So the rectangle that you see here, I don't know if it's showing up well or not on the computer, but there's actually a light gray border that goes all around here. It's slightly rounded on all 4 corners. That's one element. The header here with the pink top, that's another element.
Oh, you cut out. Yeah, you froze. Not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can still hear you. Sorry, I'm going to shut off my background music.
You froze for like 5 seconds.
That was it? That's not too bad. Yeah. I lost my screen share though too, didn't I? Yeah, this isn't good. I mean, I gotta find a solution to this. This is kind of brutal. Just in meetings too. Just like having meetings with people and dropping. It's not great. So what I was saying is there's 4 different elements: the outside, the header, the body, which is where the text is here, and then the 4th element is the logo itself, which in our case is the Pink Panther. And so that's what you're seeing. We just called our elements versions of try new. You can call them whatever you want. The reason you see my name in here is especially early on when I started tinkering with CSS, I was fearful that I was going to overwrite a bit of CSS that is intended to be used within Quarto natively. And so I know that they're not going to call anything culos. So, and then try new is probably fine. And we could get a little more descriptive. But the more descriptive you get, I think the more likely it is that you're going to interfere with something that's already natively there. The try new elements of this, one of the things I did was I tried to rearrange the bits of code within each of these 4 specifications such that someone that wanted to alter it could find and alter it pretty simply. And so this is just the general shape of your callout. The one thing that's important here is the line 11 bit of code. If you want to be consistent with the way that the 5 built-in Quarto callouts look when rendered, you're going to want to specify the border left color. That's this vertical left line here to the left of the Pink Panther. So that's one thing that the Quarto callouts do, and it's mimicked here in this margin. And the by the way, the exclamation point important it's not a note. It doesn't mean it's important for us. That seems to be in CSS one way to give priority to the types of things that you're trying to do. And then the header is the kind of colored part. And so the color itself is on line 26. So you'll see that FF99FF repeated. That's just this kind of hot pink color that we're using throughout. And then the font is lines 18 through 21. So that's all types of different elements of the font that you might want to specify. I went ahead and specified the weight. So that's going to give that tutorial a little more oomph to it, a little more boldness to it. And then the color Diego and I, when we were playing with the CSS of this, we found the if you inspect this element using a browser, you can turn off these elements. And I think we decided, Diego, that we don't like that line 19 color. So that's kind of a little grayish. And we decided that if you just leave it by default black, that kind of looks better. But to be consistent with what we went over last week, I left it. And then you see that dancing strip again. It's just kind of a neat font that I use quite often. So we put that in as the title too. You certainly don't need to do that. The icon itself. So there's quite a bit here in terms of the icon, and we had to really play with the margins and the padding to get it to look just right. And the most important element is line 38. You can have a local image if you want, or you can have an online hosted image. We're just pulling from online. And so every time we've tried to render this image, it works fine because this URL hasn't changed. It's just been the same URL over the course of the last few weeks. And then the last little bit here, the body. This is probably the least, I don't know, interesting part of it. This is just where the words go, where the typed words go. And so if we look at the specification in a Quarto document itself, again, these fenced div tags get really difficult to when we nest them like this, it gets really difficult to find the beginning and the end, and you kind of get lost in it. And there's got to be a better way, but for now, this it's not terrible if you understand what's happening. So the opening and closed here are on lines 1 and 11, and so that's our just overall rectangle. And so everything is presented within that overall rectangle. And then what we have next are we have the header and the icon. Now the icon is fully specified within the CSS. Whoops. Within the CSS. So I think we probably could take some of this out and put it inside this line 3 and 4 fenced div. But we can also just say, hey, go and grab that icon specification that's in the CSS. And that's what's being done here. And so that's why this is contained within the header. So we're putting the icon within the header. And the header, again, is this uppermost part. Also within the header, we're saying what we want to be displayed in the context of the built-in standard Quarto callouts. It's warning or tip or caution or note, and then I forget what the fifth one is. And then outside of the header, we have the body. Now the body is still inside the overall rectangle, but it's outside of the header. So it's not that complicated when you walk through it, but when you just look at, lines 1 through 11 here, it looks like a massive mess. One of the tricks that I picked from the woman who had this fantastic tutorial that's hyperlinked here is she kind of was using, not completely consistently, but she was using with some regularity, she was actually using more than 3 colons to indicate opening and closing of the fence. And so that is actually helpful. So I can tell try new on 1 lines up with line 11. I can tell that, sorry, I'm clicking around too much. I can kind of tell that 6 closes what I have on line 2. Now, it gets a little tricky because there's also 4 colons that are used in the body. But again, once you understand the CSS on the left has 4 elements to it, and you know how those 4 elements are kind of presented within each other, then it makes all of this mess not quite so. I kind of had fun with that, Diego. What do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, looks nice, and the CSS now is, I guess, makes more sense.
A little bit, yeah. We're starting to learn it, so slowly. Tonight, I thought we would talk about interactivity. And Diego, before you popped in, I was saying I think this is probably going to be one of those features that we take a look at that spills over more than just 1 week. I'm guessing because what I thought we could do is we could focus on interactivity that's not based on shiny or it's not dependent on shiny.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
there
because
are,
Shiny can be complicated
because yeah,
to
exactly.
program.
Yep, I agree. I was saying that earlier too. I think shiny is almost like a different language. There's different structure to the syntax, right? And um, that makes it a little confusing, I think. And so there are
Yeah,
other
it's
options. So the
basically front end engineering, right? Yeah, would that be the right way? Because it's not data analysis anymore. At this point, if you're using Shiny, it's more front end development, I guess.
well, both, right? Because they have the UI and then they have the server side. So I would think it's kind of both. Or am I thinking about that wrong? I don't know those terms that well. So
Yeah, me either. But my thought is the
okay.
back end is like taking care of like the data, database structure and stuff like that, and the data structure algorithms. And then front end is just how the how the web page looks.
Um, yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I think you're on the right trail anyway. So, but there are other options besides getting that deep and getting that kind of scary. Even the language you're using that's scary, to someone like a psychologist, I think a typical psychologist that sounds so developer y. Doesn't scare you, but I think it scares some people. So there are other options, and so I just pulled four options here, and these are going to be the great thing about Shiny is you can do whatever you want. You can create pie charts, you can create bar charts, you can create. I mean, I'm thinking I'm thinking within the context of ggplot here, but you don't need to be ggplot oriented. You can do whatever you want within Shiny. Um, you're not constrained to the limits of a preset number of formats. And so there are other options, though. There are other options that have more kind of training wheels on them, I would say. And one that Diego and I go to all the time is Plotly. Plotly is fantastic. So Plotly gives you so much information. This is just a bubble chart, but it's a bubble chart. Oh, couple of things. So one, take note that this is bleeding a little bit over the page. I want to come back to that because I have some questions about that. But what's being represented here is is a few different things within this visual. And so we have and again, all of these plots I just stole from other people. I didn't spend more than 10 seconds on any one of these. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty, and then we just copy and paste it into our code, and there we go. But you get upon hover, you get some information about the country itself. You get some specificity with regard to the variables that are on the X and Y axis, as well as additional variables. And now there's something that is presented within the size of the bubble, and I believe the size of the bubble is probably population. I didn't look at this deep enough to know, but it just kind of looks like that's probably what it is. China is our biggest, India is our second biggest. United States is actually fairly big. How many people are in the U.S. relative to other countries? That that surprises me a little bit. I didn't know we were that big. If that's what's being represented as population, but you can do all kinds of interactivity with these just standard plotly objects. You can filter. Now we're getting a little shiny like when we start to do things like filter data. But we can certainly say, I want this presented or I don't want it presented. And again, that information upon hover is fantastic. This is just one type of chart within Plotly. There's several different types of charts. Maybe Diego, maybe to start, we can show people what we've been working on with our Plotly object, or we can just look at something else. We don't need to look at ours. Leaflet maps, these are hugely popular as well, and these are fun. I just took a standard U.S. map and I put on it. I centered it on two areas that Diego and I are familiar with. This is where Diego and I met each other. Was in the psych building here, so we call this work. And then for a little bit I lived in downtown Montclair, and there's a little Irish bar there that I like, and so that's the play location. But you can get pretty specific on these in terms of just in and zooming in, zooming out, and there's the interactivity in this. It can get more complex, but all I did was I just fed in work and play, and so pre-existing within this leaflet library, we actually have all kinds of maps that are available. All you really need is latitude and longitude, and you can center a map and put markers wherever you want to put them. This one I was not familiar with. This one is something that I came across. The next two are two that I have not played with, and I had no familiarity with at all. I'm gonna reload this and see if I get some spin ability there. I'm having a few issues with this 3JS in terms of, and the online slides as well. If you access them, I'm not sure if you're gonna get the full interactivity. Now this is cool, right? It almost looks more artistic than data viz oriented. I don't know. I think what's being represented are clusters of, I believe, novels and books from some author. I forget who the author actually is. Again, I just
Oh,
pulled.
really? Those. So it's like that. Remember that plot we made, the exploratory, no, the graphical exploratory analysis,
Yeah,
and it was this looks like that, but you said it was instead of the big five is by book genre.
I think this was book. I think I may have. No, I didn't put a hyperlink in here, but we can check it out. We'll check it out and see what this is. Just a default graph that they had, but we can go in there and see. Well, I'll just pull it up right now. We'll go 3JS and see what who the author is, because I know you are a big reader, Diego.
Well, I wouldn't say big, but more than most, I guess. Well, most people use Audible now. They just listen to it instead of reading.
Yeah, I never got into that kind of like books on tape kind of thing, which Audible is just, you know, books on tape version 2000 and whatever. So here's the same graph. Here's the one I pulled. Literally, this is the syntax for it. So it's a little three-line code, and oh, it's characters and Les Mis. I guess that's what that is. So each circle represents a character, and an edge between circles indicates that they interacted. I'm guessing when they say edge, they mean the connection between the nodes here. Circles, I'm calling nodes. So, huh. Les Mis. Sorry. So it's
So that's
related to literature, but
the what is it? It's the number of words that show up and how they relate to each other, or how
no,
close
that was
they appear.
the very brief description we saw said each circle represents a character, and what we're seeing
Oh, a
is the
character.
extent to which, yeah. So Jean Paul Jean is probably right here, right? I don't know if we can, or maybe they have, yeah, guy's name? Jean Valjean? Jean Valjean, right? I called him
I
Jean
don't
Paul.
know. I never saw the Miserables. The I never saw the Miserables.
Well, it was a Victor Hugo book, right?
Yeah. Well, it was a play, right?
Yeah, I think it was a novel first, but it was Jean Valjean was the main character, and so that's who you see here when that's center node, and then these are all the people that he interacts with, and then it looks like there's some people that interact with people who interact with him, but don't. So it looks like Madwem, Mademoiselle. how do you say that? Diego, how do you say mademoiselle?
You ask me, Mademoiselle.
I think that's what MLLE stands for. So Gilles apparently interacted with Jean-Paul Jean, but Vavois did not. But Vavois interacted with, according to this sheet here,
Yeah,
Vavois interacted with Gilles Normand.
now I want to look at that data. The Les Miserables data set. Let's
Yeah,
see.
well, I can tell you can. It's the code for it is in this week's slides. It's on line 226. So it's Les Mis. The data is actually called Les Mis. So, well, let's load it in here actually, so you can see what it looks like. Diego's interested in the data. We'll take a little look here and see what that looks like. It's a list of, oh, it's going to be complex. It's a list. So we'd have to actually unpack that a little bit. It's not coming in like you and I, it's not coming in like data that people like you and I typically deal with. And then, so that's something that we can play with. I have no exposure to or experience with. And then the other one that I have no exposure or experience with is called DY graphs. And this seems to be focused on time series analysis. And so again, there's a little, it's, the figure itself is coming in a little larger than the container. So I have to scroll, but if you scroll, you can go ahead and do a little bit of customization on here. So you can see each of these options has interactivity inherent within it, and none of these require any sort of fancy coding or specification. Those Plotly objects in particular are probably the ones that are most directly amenable to traditional standard ways of presenting data. So I think we'll probably start there. DY graphs also, but a little more limited, I believe, in terms of time series analysis. The the interactive helper page on Quarto also implicates a package called HTML widgets. Now, I'm familiar with HTML widgets from probably 5 or 6 years ago because I've used functions from within HTML widgets to help better present interactive visuals. And so it was my understanding when I saw HTML widgets that we were going to have to use functions from HTML widgets. Now, in the current documentation, it seems as though HTML widgets and these 3 or 4 different packages, Leaflet, 3JS, and DY Graphs for sure. I believe Plotly as well, but I can't say for sure Plotly because they don't make that explicit. But it seems like HTML widgets and these 3, maybe 4, have quite a bit of integration such that you don't need to have HTML widget functions wrapping around an object, for example, that you might create in Plotly or an object that you might create in Leaflet. Everything that we have here, other than that Les Mis chart, everything seems to work pretty well on the online slides. And so those are just hosted elsewhere. So I did have to refresh a page a couple of times to get that Les Mis chart to be spinnable. But it seems like if you play with your browser a little bit, at least it becomes fully active. So I'm not 100% sure that we don't need wrapper functions. If we have a little time, one of the things I'd like to do is to try some of my old syntax, which what I did here was I saved using a save widget function. I saved, in this case, it was a map. I saved a map called HC underscore GDPR. I saved it as an HTML file. And then I fed that into a different package that's related called widget frame. And so what that did was that actually gave me an interactive object that was self-contained within the browser container. And so I didn't have issues like what I'm saying we might be seeing here with some information and some components of the graph that are looks like they're accessible most easily underneath the visible space. And so I think, we can, once we play with these, we can see if we want to come back and maybe explicitly specify some of these things. Okay. So let's maybe start. You want to start with Plotly, Diego? Take a look at Plotly.
Actually, I was more curious about Leaflet because you can
Okay.
create maps with that.
Yeah. Should
But
we look at
Plotly is fine
Leaflet?
too. I mean, whatever is simpler for our audience. Do you think Plotly might be simpler?
I think that I think we're going to be doing this multiple weeks. So I think maybe we start with Plotly because we can show them what we came up um, with our little package that we've been working on, and then we can take a look also at maybe some different types of Plotly graphs that we can create.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Do you want to share maybe our at least our app?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I gotta make another quick bathroom run here. I'll be right back.
Oh, hey. So,
So I saw our app flash up there for a second.
I
So
think
that one has shiny components on it too, which we're trying to stay away from. But the main visuals that you're seeing are Plotly visuals, right?
yeah, they're all Plotly. The graphs. I mean,
So the shiny part is what Diego's doing now, actually uploading data, and then some of the filtering on the left with the number of items. But um, you're getting the you're getting feedback upon hover on those items themselves. For us, this is something that might be useful for someone interested in crafting tests. It tells about the information that's provided from test items, both individually and then collectively. Um, and so that's one Plotly object. We can also, let's see, let's take the thing that's neat about this, I think, is just the visual. Again, I don't know why, but I love that black background with the kind of neon type colors on it. We can also just go to plotly.com/r. Maybe I'll put that in the chat. And then we can see all kinds of different, from that URL, you can see all kinds of different types of charts. And most of these charts, you can just steal code and go ahead. Ooh, were you able to? So one of the things that Diego and I are doing is on Fridays, uh, we need to kind of make that visual a little. We need to organize the location and layout of it. And so I saw off the corner of my eye that maybe he tweaked some of the location. So um,
yeah, it was the 50. We set the width to 50%, hoping to make them side by side, but instead I just created this white box.
yeah, we need to spend a little more time on that, I think. You know what? Plotly, if you go to that link that I put in there, Diego, Plotly does have some maps in there as well. So we could probably do a map within Plotly as well as maps within Leaflet. Do you want me to share that or do you want to share that?
Like share, like in the on
Screen,
the slides, or
no, just screen share, just kind of walk through and create something.
sure I can create one. But it will have to be a um, Shiny app. So we create a Shiny app right now, or would
No,
it
I
be
think we
no?
want to. I
It's
think we want
Plotly.
to stay away from Shiny. If you let me put in the private chat, let me put in this URL so you can link on it. Um, or if you just want to type plotly.com/r. There's so many different options on that site. I think we can maybe just uh, open up a new Quarto document and just see if we can embed some of those existing objects within that Quarto document. Or if you want to, we could play with our own data if you want. We could create something with our own data.
Well, they create white papers. Should have known that before. Um, so where do I go here, Nar? There's this place you said that.
I'm I think I can't quite see your URL, but I think it may have pulled up a little different. So so you have plotly.com/, and then you have a big word. All you want is just
Resources.
the letter, yeah, all you want is just the letter R, and it'll bring you
Oh,
to a
there we go.
gallery. There you go. And so we should be able to, I mean, there's multiple examples within each of these clickable images. So we should be able to find one that we think looks interesting and just replicate it. And if we wanted to apply it to our own data, we could do that. But I think, I did a bubble chart. There's something up on the top that looks like a diagram of an atom. I have no idea what it is, but I think we should try that. Yeah, isn't that cool? So the leaflet, you get the leaflet information on hover with the Plotly object. But I think there's more, there's kind of some more neat things that you can do with Plotly with maps. I was looking into for a different project earlier. And so should be able to, for example, uh, indicate census tracts or counties or specific states through clickability and interactivity. So that's something we could play with if you want. If you just want to start simple, Diego, I think go to that. Of course, he doesn't want to start simple, so we'll do that. Now you're just
Well,
in. Are you just in an R script, Diego?
yeah. Oh well, how did it do that? Um,
Well, let's look at the code and see what it actually did. So it's reading information from a URL. I'm guessing that's
yeah, U.S. city. This is the data. It's just the city, state. Let me zoom in actually. Uh, there. So the city, state, population, latitude, and longitude,
okay, cool.
and just with that information, it somehow um, can plot can get an entire map.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, does it? So it's probably, I'm guessing those pink dots are pulling from latitude and longitude, and then the information I can't quite see, but maybe the information is the population. So we should be able to code that as well. So we should be able to make those bubbles responsive to the population of the population of different sizes. You want to do a histogram on population and see what that looks like?
Sure.
See if we get a bunch of different a range of values there.
So much of a range.
uh, what is going on there? So we might have to specify a number of bins. It looks like there might be an outlier, right? Something, maybe New York or something is way off on the right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so
I
let's
think
put
you
more
can,
bins. I don't
yeah, I
know,
think you can have
100.
bins equals. Let me see. I don't know that specification off the top of my head either. You can also try um, the DESCR function freak. I use that all the time.
Yeah, you're right. New York.
Yeah, well, it's gotta be either New York or Houston, right? I think those are the two most populous cities. Um, Let me see. Breaks. So instead of bins, Diego, you can do breaks. Breaks equal, and then do that like, I don't know, 20 or something.
All right, it was breaks.
Still way up there. Might need to chop New York, see what it looks like. Why are so many? Uh, no, data. Diego's happy he gets to code now instead of doing authoring stuff. He gets to actually play with data. It's like the leash is off. Did you hear what I said? Or you weren't here earlier, Diego, but I said um, I've been I've been kind of focused on this Tuesday hour long period to be focused on using R as an authoring platform. I know that people are more interested in using R for traditional applications. So I was saying if anyone had any actual R questions as well, not just authoring, but R questions, that we would welcome that as well. I know you'd be up for that. I'm just looking at some of the other Plotly kind of things here too. Man, they have a lot of neat stuff. I really like this atom looking thing. I know you want to play with the map, but are we still trying to get a histogram?
Yeah. Damn, he's too many.
I can't find my atom picture here. I can find the picture, but I can't find the specification of the picture. Do you want me to do anything there, Diego? Filter city. You don't want New York, right? So city not equal to New York? Is that what you want?
That's what I tried before. I'm just gonna put it in an object.
Uh, I'm really digging some of these. Now some of these are getting quite complex. That the examples on the Plotly site. Well, we know that it's New York, and we guess that there's more. We should be able to map the population to the size of the bubble. So while you're playing with that, Diego, I'm going to look that up, okay? Map. Uh, and then this is Plotly, right?
Yeah.
Because I've done this with Leaflet. Um, I haven't done it with Plot. I haven't done anything with maps in Plotly, but we should be able to do that. I'm seeing a ggplot code here, and I think ggplot does tend to go. Oh, here we go. It's just size. So we would go. Can you do your graph again, Diego? Let's take a look at your graph. Not the histogram, but the actual Plotly graph.
Here. Where'd the Plotly go?
so we should be able to lat equals lat, long equals long. I think there's a size. Do you have a text? So you're getting that upon hover. Is there a text? There must be a text specification. And you looking for your, well, there's Jersey City. They got my old apartment in there. So in your, where it says lat long, you should be able to, in that general vicinity where it says lat long marker type and hover link, somewhere in there you might be able to just put size equals.
Let's see. Plot. Wait. Yeah, and color and a ton of things. So let's see what happens if we put size.
And then they use that tilde convention. Well, no, I think we want to map it to a variable, Diego. So if you use tilde and then population, we might be able to actually.
Or wait, tilde is the S thing.
It's above the tick, or it's the same key as the tick. Yeah.
Let's see what that looks like. Oh, doesn't want to comment.
I think you got on line 12 there, Diego, you took that closing parenthesis. You put the comma in the wrong spot. So you see that? Yep, right there. So you want the comma after one closing parenthesis, and then you got to move that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
down
there you
here.
go. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Still didn't like it. Looks like we might have. Is that just overplotting, or did we actually get some size on there? That's just
No,
overplotting.
looks the same.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we want? Size and Plotly. We could also try, you want to see color? See if color does anything? Is populate the other thing is, I guess we should make sure population is in there as a numeric variable. If you want to take a look at that object, the data object.
Yeah, it's an integral.
Huh. I wonder if it's different because it's a map. Let's see. Color. You want to try color and see if that does anything? The other thing I'm seeing, I mean, this is. Did you spell population right?
Yes, population, same as here.
Are we getting any feedback in the errors?
No. No scatter map box mode is specified.
You know, one of the things with help pages on Plotly in particular is Plotly seems like it's really popular with Python, and so a lot of the help that we see is Python. I'm seeing a lot of mapping to um, a variable in Python. They're using a marker specification. Is there a marker specification within the R plotly? Did you see that?
Um, for sizes, it said something about
So
um, marker. No, this is
no marker? Okay. Well, must just be I wonder if it's location or where we have size. Plotly. So it's under the plotly. Could you try it without the tilde? I think it probably does want tilde, but the other thing I'm seeing is people are specifying the data object itself. So instead of just saying population, they're saying fig $ population.
hmm.
And then it shouldn't matter that it's an integer, not a number, but I wonder if we do as dot numeric on that.
Hmm. That could be. Uh, here.
Does that look a little different?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a number.
All right, well, let's see if we can get this one, then we can just call it for today. And then we'll come back next week. We'll take a look at these other, some of these other options. And then we'll see, we'll see what a map and leaflet look like. 'Cause that one, like I said, I'm a lot more familiar with that.
Leaflet. I don't know, it's a funny name. It's like a leaf, but smaller.
Yeah, a little leaf. You can try, I wonder, um, can you do a mode equals command on there, Diego? I think it's
Hmm.
probably it's not in the layout. It should be in the same section you're in. Mode equals markers. See what that does. I'm not sure. Again, I'm kind of going back and forth between Python and R here. I would imagine they would have the same kind of commands. We don't need an AES, do we, like we would in ggplot?
Um, no. It says here that setting the mode to markers, so it already does it by default.
Okay.
And we can also use add markers if we want to change it.
Okay, well, let's try that. You know what we could do? I think this is what I'd be tempted to do, especially in a crunch, is we could make a ggplot. Oh, I don't know if we can we do a ggplot with a map? I'm not sure. I was just thinking you can do a ggplot and then add that ggplotly command to change the static ggplot to a plotly object.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, we can
Maybe I'm thinking maybe we have to put it down here on the map box layout, because here's where it creates the map, I think. Maybe it is down here instead of up here. Like, I don't
we
know,
can
maybe we
try. That
change
doesn't
here
make
and
much sense to me.
size equals population, you know. Let's just put it to 100. I don't think that did anything.
No, they don't seem responsive to that mapping. Well, that's okay. I think maybe what we can do, Diego, is since we just looked at a Plotly map this week, when we do next week's recap, I can just, you and I can figure out how to map the variable, and then we can just focus on the other three options next week. Unless you want to keep working. Let me see. Let me see if I can help you here. It looks like it just that size specification. Oh, did you try size equals uh tilde and then either ticks or parentheses. Try ticks first, like the uh no, I'm sorry. The tick like we would specify if we were doing inline code, like if we are about to do an R inline code, or the three ticks that we use for an R chunk.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. And then population. Yeah, try that. Sorry, was that me again?
What happened?
I think I disappeared. I think it was my stupid internet.
No, you didn't disappear that I see. Okay.
But Diego, I don't think we want size down below, right? Did you did we do that or was that Okay, so it doesn't like that population. You want to try quotes?
You said maybe putting it more up.
Uh, um, no, I don't think I think it's okay where it's at. I'm just instead of the ticks around population, I wonder if you can try quotes or double quotes. doesn't like that, huh? So I think, like I said, I think it's not that big of a deal. I can, you and I can figure out how to map that before next week. I'm guessing that we need, uh, I'm guessing that we need to be a little more specific in terms of some of these options. I mean, I'm seeing this mode command be, it looks like mode is important. So instead of size equals, we have mode equals, and then size equals. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like wrapped. Mode equals, and then do it mode equals, and then size equals. That can't be, is that right? Size equals tilde population.
That's, that's so peculiar.
Yeah, that can't be right. Again, I'm kind of pulling from Python and R, and half of it's tidyverse, half of it's not. So it looks like if we do some more marker specification, we can probably get it. But I wonder if the map specification might be throwing us off too. And specific, because of the Latin longe, maybe, right? Because it's not a typical number that is referencing an x-axis and a y-axis. The latitude and longitude is relative to an x and y axis, but the numbers are way different
Hmm.
in terms of like the equator and the prime meridian. I never thought about that. That kind of is. It is like a x and y axis, isn't it? The latitude and longitude.
Yeah, I always thought of it like that. It's just only that they're curved.
Yeah. All right. I never have, but I guess it makes perfect sense. Except for the fact that they all converge at the top and the bottom. That seems a little weird. Like they're not strictly vertical or strictly horizontal. They're converging. It seems like I don't know. It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, they have point zero.
All right. So are you okay with that, Diego? You and I just figuring out the bit of code that we're missing and putting it in next week's recap, and then
Yeah,
we hit the other three next week.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm just tempted to just ask ChatGPT
Well,
to
go
just fix it.
if you want, go ahead. Um, the other thing that I was thinking was it, the a workaround that I've done in the past is to create a ggplot, which we're a lot more familiar with this and with how to structure those, and then feed the ggplot into create a gg God, just create a plotly object using the ggplotly function. I think that's a plotly function. Let me see. ggplotly. It just creates a plotly object from a ggplot. That is in plotly. Yeah, so that's a plotly object. I'm sorry, a plotly function. So ggplotly is a plotly
Oh,
function.
look, this is what ChatGPT is saying. That marker, we have to change it. We have to put the color and the size inside marker.
Okay, try it. That yeah, I was seeing quite a bit with that marker specification. I'm guessing it's because it's pulling it from latitude and longitude. It's not being read like a typical
It's just size
graph object.
equals.
Now, do you have a paid account now for that, Diego, or are you still using the free version?
I used to have a paid one when we were in the machine learning competition, but now I am subscribed.
Oh, that's right. Do you notice much of a difference?
No, not much. With the other one, I could make images. No, what did we do?
I think it probably did work, but it's just, you're gonna have to zoom out because like they're all too big.
Oh no, why? It's huge.
You did population divided by 1,000.
Yes.
Uh, I I think we'll probably have to play with that a little bit in terms of the the metric that is derivative of population. Whether we can just leave. Did you try it? Why don't you try it just with population? See if that's any more readable. And if not, we'll divide by, I don't know, 1,000,000 or something. Because it looks like it's mapping it. It looks like it's mapping it relative to the X and Y scale. So
Oh,
if
that
the
might
lat
be it. Because yeah, we're not zooming in. I don't know. It's giving me a
wow, that's
headache.
really bright pink. That's worse than the Pink Panther pink. That's more obnoxious. It's like cyan. I think you're gonna have to go probably 1,000,000 or so, Diego, given the scale of our
There we
data.
go. That looks much better.
Did we lose some cities though? Do or are they
Uh,
just tiny little pinprick?
yeah, they're tiny. You have to
Okay,
zoom in.
okay, that's cool. Good job. So yeah, there's our outlier, New York.
Yeah, the huge one, and the other one is
If you take one of those
here.
zeros off, is it readable?
I mean, I think it's readable now. We just need to zoom in.
It kind of is. It's just we lose all the little tiny ones. Well, it's tiny. It's a pinprick.
Yeah, okay,
Stupid
let's
New
remove a
York is
zero.
ruining it for everybody. So actually, so I said Houston. So actually, LA is the second, right? Just looking at your mapping. Yeah. So it looks like New York, LA, Chicago, and then Houston. Why was I thinking Houston was so? Maybe it's geographic area. I think Houston's just spread out large. Maybe not population large.
No,
Okay.
it
Yeah,
wants the
that's
100,000.
so. What
Is
was
that maybe
the?
by 1,000,000? I don't know. Now New York is tiny.
Wait, it was in 1850. Okay. So we just added on line 12 there. Is that all we did? Oh, they had a scatter too. So we didn't have that scatter specification in terms of type, did we?
No, we did.
We did. So it just
Type
wrapped everything
scatter map box.
in that marker statement.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. So that's not that different from just a normal bubble plot then, because we were seeing that on more traditional X and Y axes as well. That it wanted markers specified. Okay, cool. Can you for next week, Diego, can you forward me that code that you have so I can put it in next week's slides so we can recreate that?
Hmm.
You don't like
Okay.
something now? Ooh, I like that one. How big is that? That looks better to me. You can see
We
more
can
small
see
cities.
a little bit more. I put it to 600,000.
Okay.
Actually, 60,000.
Okay, cool. All right, so uh, send me a copy of that code, will you, Diego, or push it to the repo or something.
Okay, I'll save it to. Well, this is basically the same thing that's on the website, really.
Well, except I
Only that
mean,
adding the size only inside
except
the
adding the size
marker.
specification, and we just wanted that one marker. Oh, and then you have a list. So we could change that color, right? So instead of color equals fuchsia, you could put yellow or whatever, right?
Yep.
Or we could probably also map. Um, what if you did? What if we mapped color to like latitude? Can you do that? So color equals tilde latitude or tilde lat. I would imagine so. So then we'll have a rainbow up and down.
No, it's just orange.
Yeah,
All the
that looks
colors
kind of cool
blended.
too.
Well, I should get
Yeah,
going
that
now.
looks nice. Okay, thanks, Diego. I will see you Thursday night. Is that right? Did we change our
Yeah,
meeting to Thursday?
yeah, I'll
Okay.
send the link.
Okay, sounds good. See you then.
Okay, bye.